Thank you for staying with Citizen Extra with me, Lillian Muli. This morning, it's not yet afternoon, we're looking at what the big issues affecting Kenyan youth are. We know it is an election year, but we want to get into a conversation over what issues the youth are dealing with. With me in studio is Benson Gatu. He's an aspirant, Mathira constituency, fairly youthful aspirant, only 29 years old. Also with me in studio is Michael Sudi, Country Coordinator, Organization of African Youth. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you for being with us on Citizen Extra. I want to start with you, Michael Sudi, on the key highlights of the Geopol survey report. You were looking into the big issues affecting Kenyan youth. What are the key highlights of that report?
Thank you, Lillian. The partners on Jactivate movement contracted Geopol, a polling firm, to get 4 key priorities that young people feel matter to them and key in realizing their dreams and aspirations. So on the highlights, the young people identified unemployment as a key issue that is dear to them and affecting their lives. The second one was on corruption, that they feel directly affect their lives at personal and family levels. Then the fourth one was issues around health, the youth health and access to health. And the fourth one on issues around drought and food security. The fifth came as insecurity, and these are now the priorities that the poll that was conducted that reached 2,000 young Kenyans were identified as priorities that they need addressed by their leaders and the duty bearers.
You talk about 2,000 young Kenyans. Do you have a specific age bracket that you were looking into, and indeed specific areas where this survey was carried out?
Thank you, Lillian. The survey was done through mobile phone platform by Geopol, and we had 60% of the people polled being from rural areas and the rest from the urban areas. And the Kenyan Constitution defines youth as somebody aged between 18 and 35. So those were the targeted in the sample for the polling.
Benson, you are an aspirant in Mathira constituency, a fairly young one at that. I want to talk about how Kenyan youth address these issues. We know that a lot of them have come out on social media a lot of times to talk about issues they're not happy with. They seem to be keeping tab on the political happenings in the country, what with the trends that we've been seeing in recent weeks. But how do Kenyan youth address these issues? Michael Sudi has cited unemployment as one of the major issues, corruption. He's talked about healthcare. He's talked about food security.
I think when you talk about the youth, let's first talk about, let's address it from an angle where youth feel left out. Most times when you talk to the young people, they feel they have been left out in all the decision-making processes, in job allocations, even in the government and other sectors. And that's why every other day we keep talking about unemployment among the youth. How to address this? I believe, and I'm sure, that if we could have a few youthful leaders among the panel of leaders we have in our country, then these people will relay the interest and the aspirations of other youth in the systems. However, it's quite unfortunate that we, the same youth who claim to be left out in all matters pertaining us, do not present ourselves when matters pertaining us are being discussed.
And that's right, and I'm glad you brought that up. When you say that the youth feel left out, are they even well versed with what's going on in the country? For instance, do they read the paper daily? Are they aware that there's a youth fund? Are they well versed with the opportunities that are out there for them? Yes, unemployment is an issue, but have they tried other options, say self-employment, entrepreneurship? There are funds that have been allocated to the youth for the same, but how well versed are they with the opportunities and the facilities that are readily available for them?
Unfortunately, most of them are not. It's quite unfortunate. One reason I'll say it's because our system has been channeled towards making us believe if you're not working in an office, then you're unemployed. That's a stereotype that most of us are growing up with. So that's why you find anyone who is not employed in an office will not go buy in a newspaper. After all, they expect a newspaper to be bought in an office. So if you're not working there, you don't go through a newspaper. Most youthful people in our country don't follow up on exactly what's happening in our day-to-day lives. And therefore, we end up missing a lot on things happening out here. Out of frustration, out of blame games, and I would actually squarely put it on blame games. Yeah, every other time we talk about the government not doing this for us, I remember the former president Moi Kibaki used to ask, "What have you done for the government?" I would tell, and I would also, I would want to ask my fellow youth guys, let's not always blame the systems for not providing opportunities. The opportunities are there. It's up to us to grab them.
And Gabriel is with us in studio as well. Gabriel Muthuma is a governance analyst. When we talk about the issues that are most important to young Kenyans in the year 2017, you hear their concerns. They say they feel left out. They're raising concerns surrounding unemployment, corruption, health care. We're also seeing a new crop of young leaders that are seeking leadership positions, the likes of Jaguar, the likes of Babu Owino, and many others. But when you look at some of these leaders, and you look at their intention, even with taking these leadership positions, do you really see the youth taking on leadership positions and taking their own towards their intended purpose, if any at all? Are they well placed in these respective constituencies as regards leadership positions and what they're going to do for their counterparts, which are the youthful electorate?
Brilliant question, Lillian. You see, I'll quote from what somebody said, that the youth of a nation are the guarantees of prosperity. Question is, do they understand? Like you put it very well, Lillian. Do they understand? You see, I do not want to live in a vacuum where I believe that once I finish my life in academia, I'll go and work for the government. The government cannot absorb the amount or the number of youth graduating from our academic institutions. But the government can and must be held accountable to ensure that there is enough space for the youth to be entrepreneurial, to have a vision, to have a dream and realize it. If that is not available, then we can, as my good friend is saying, we can blame the government. But is there an existence of the platform that I've talked about? I believe there is. So what is wrong? You've alluded to the picture that we are seeing. We have young leaders who are coming again out of academia and thinking that working for government or getting into a position or into a political position is the place to be. What is happening in this situation really is people who have really not mastered, or they have not found themselves who they are. I'm repeating it here again, and I've said it before. Being in a political office is not a career, Lillian, and the youth of this nation must take this stride to heart. This is where you're given the opportunity to serve the people, and when that is done, you go back to your business, whatever you are doing, and probably retire to that. Being in politics, when you take it as a career, trust you me, you're going to have a lot of issues. I mean, it is seen everywhere. Politics comes to an end.
My point, Muthuma. Are these youthful leaders taking on these positions or vying for these positions because of popularity, because of power, because of perhaps, you know, looking for a gravy train, or do they actually have the interests of the people at heart? Because we do know that they will have to play a legislative role.
Power seems, Lillian, power seems to be the driving factor. Again, this is on my view alone. Power seems to be the driving factor. Because, Lillian, like my good friend has said, there is so much information but very little knowledge. Why am I saying this? The youth of this nation, we know by far are the majority. Yet, when they bring about at the crop of leadership that we are seeing, again, I have nothing against Jaguar, nothing against Babu Owino. But I'm asking you, Lillian, are these the best people would have found to lead in matters legislation? Let me point at somebody who I think has done a perfect job. Somebody like Johnston Sakaja, a very young guy who went to parliament with a clear legislative agenda. And by the way, he was actually nominated into parliament. You see, what this man has been able to do, and when he sits down, you can see this person has a vision. He knows where he's heading, and he actually brings the youth with him. He passed the youth bill. I mean, he has tried as much as possible to bring the youth on board with matters like Huduma and Uwezofan and the, you know, the whole thing encompassing the youth fund. But very little people, Lillian, like you've said it, understand what that is. That's why I said there's so much information, very little knowledge. People are just coming to information and they don't want to drive thereafter. That's why I keep saying, when you come into contact with information, it is the onus is upon you to come and decipher that information and understand, where is this information going to take me? Because the work of information really is to bring awareness, and that's just it. But when you come into contact with knowledge, Lillian, the next thing we expect from the youth of this nation is transformation. You've come into contact with knowledge. We are not stopping at anything before you transform or before you transform your society. Failure to which I think you have already seconded yourself as not understanding with the economics of your time.
Sudi, what are you putting in place to ensure leaders address these issues, the issues that the youth are grappling with?
Thank you, Lillian. As organization and with several partners, we came up with a project called Jactivate Movement to address these 4 key issues. So Jactivate is a social movement that we launched at the Kenya National Theatre last week to go to the grassroots, neighborhoods, urban and rural centers to get what do youth feel that these issues are, and what are their suggested solutions, and how can they hold those who are responsible to in addressing them, to come up with policies and means to address them. So Jactivate social movement already is up. We've gone to Kajiado. We've gotten the real issues that are affecting the youth, for example, delayed payments of the government tenders, delayed payments from the county tenders, and also the issues around corruption, especially those who do small-scale businesses. So the Jactivate will get the inputs that are contextualized and county-based. Then after that, we want to come up with a youth declaration that speaks to these issues. And we also expect in the upcoming presidential debate that the key issues that will come through what we are collecting through the Jactivate social media platform, Jactivate county activities, and through sports and arts, maybe 1 or 2 of these questions should be addressed by the presidential candidates, because we expect after that that their manifesto should come out strongly to address these challenges. At the same time, we just don't want to keep on yapping, complaining. We want to be part of the solutions and also even hold accountable the youth leaders who will be elected. Because Lillian, if we don't address these issues, yes, we have the population bulge coming strongly. It's estimated by the UNFPA by 2050 we'll have the highest highest number of the youth population in Kenya. Many are leaving schools in thousands. Some are just looking for opportunity to do something. They understand, so many youth understand that unemployment, yes, is a global problem. They understand the opportunities are few, but our poll shows around 68% of young people want a platform where they can articulate these issues, a platform where they can speak, sit and talk with the leaders, and also a platform where they can express their feelings. So the Jactivate movement, even after elections, will carry on to follow up the elected leaders, follow up with the youthful leaders to come up with a common solution. But above all, I think as a country, we need to put the challenge where it belongs exactly.
And Benson, right, to you, in terms of legislation, do you feel the youth are well represented or have been well represented in the 11th Parliament? And should you make it in the August polls and become Member of Parliament, Mathera, what changes will you bring?
First, let me say, compared to previous parliaments, yes, in a way, the youth were a bit well represented in the 11th Parliament, however not enough. There's something the gentleman here mentioned concerning youth power and politics. Now, I would want people to know one thing. It's quite unfortunate that the Kenyan politics has been channeled towards those with money or the prominent families. Those are the people who we see in our politics every other day. My candidature and why I sought to vie in politics, it's because I would want my fellow young people to know you might not come from that family, you may not have all the money, but if you have the right agendas, yes, you can be part of the Kenyan political system with the right reasons and for the right purpose. If I'm elected to parliament, one thing I would want to see is I would want to participate in a debate where, if not limited to youth matters, is being discussed with the likes of Akinababu. Why? They might have their own reasons to be in politics. I have mine. But we need to have proper representation of the youth and proper image of the youth in politics. If we do not, for those in politics, if we do not portray ourselves to be mature enough to be in politics, then we are taking the youth to political oblivion in future. If we do not conduct ourselves with respect and utmost respect for that matter, then people will never take the youth serious, not just in politics, but in other social avenues. Now,
okay, thanks for that. And to you, Gabriel, as we close, majority of Kenyan youth address these issues on social media, and a lot of hate is spewed as well on social media by the very same youth, disrespectfully, even sometimes towards the presidency. We see memes, we see, so the lack of seriousness as well that is seen in the way some of these issues are raised. Yes, they are legitimate concerns, but you almost get the sense that on social media it's a tirade, it's a platform for banter, but really not a concerted effort towards seeing change. And yet social media is very powerful and could be used in better ways to articulate the issues that the youth are currently dealing with.
Again, agreed. You know, Lillian, we are living in the advent of the internet with the opportunistic technologies that we've seen, Facebook, Twitter, and what have you. And like you've said, these are very good platforms that the youth of today can use even to express their grievances. And once you've been given a platform like that, you are very right. I've also been able to read what people have said, and it's true, some are actually very hurting, not only to the president, but also the people in power and authority. So the youth of this nation, first of all, must take themselves seriously, like you said, before anybody else can take them serious. And I'm liking the fact that my friend has also alluded to that very fact. What do I mean but there is so much knowledge, so much information but very little knowledge, is exactly what Lillian, you've said. We have areas, we have platforms that have been put for us to be able to engage, not only with authority but with leadership. But yet, every passing day, we are misusing those platforms. If the youth, again, of this nation, let me repeat, are to be taken seriously, they must start by taking themselves serious. You saw what happened to the youth fund. Okay, so that's why I'm saying it is very hard for the youth to actually point fingers and say we've not had better representation. The youth fund, I mean, they were given that important office for them to run with, but look at the CEOs who came in, issues with accountability, but they are very young people. So really the direction,
but then again, you would argue that the people that were put there to run the youth fund were simply doing what they've seen their predecessors do.
Justifiably so, Lillian. Yeah. You are very right, and that's why I said the youth must, depending on what they've been able to read and understand, they must create their own knowledge space and bring everybody on board. What am I saying? Look at the people, and I would like to equate this with two people. Look at people, somebody like Malcolm X, even though he existed in another era. Look at somebody like Martin Luther King. These are people who had not even celebrated their 40th birthdays. They were young people, but look the kind of journey that they have taken the world and the youth of this great world. I mean, it is to be talked about, and that's why you see we are going to read about these people in history as long as we live. That's the kind of dynamic I'm talking about, Lillian. The youth must disassociate themselves with the vices that they are learning from the older generation. They must carve their own niche. They must help us and the country at large to swim with them in their current. If they are able to achieve that, Lillian, I think we are going to see a serious change in the way the youth of this nation operate. But if we are going to continue getting people who we've seen throughout creating havoc and doing what have you. And these are the people we are going to give political seats and expect them once they get to office to have a certain rush of morality. Lillian, we are lying to ourselves.
Okay, and you know, I think that's a good point to finish on with the wise counsel of course, your senior, that is Gabriel Musuma, who is a governance expert and analyst, and of course with us Benson Gatu, aspirant Mathioya constituency, and Michael Sudi, country coordinator, Organization of African Youth. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your thoughts. We're now crossing over to Parliament. We know that currently they're discussing the police service amendment bills. Stephen Leto has been there, but let's listen in to what's currently going on in Bunge.
Really work, you know, very, very strenuous, under very strenuous circumstances. They work in very hardship areas without much compensation. I'm aware about the fact that one time, the last time I inquired about the hardship allowance, it was just a mere 1,900. At least if this could be improved to even like what the Teacher Service Commission pay of 30% of their basic salary, it would really be good. Now, mentioning also about the deplorable conditions of the housing, one thing I want to really say that the disciplined force, we have not had many cases of maybe family breakages yet. Very, very disturbing that families are allowed to share the single-roomed houses. I even wonder how they really, whether they get any sort of privacy. Mr. Speaker, sir, the conditions, you know, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission should really look into harmonizing the terms and condition of service for all the disciplined forces. I don't know why there should be the unequal or sort of discrimination when it comes to the prisons officers, the national police, and the military. I believe that they all sacrifice their lives a lot, and there is need to look into a way of harmonizing. Even if there would be any small variation, then this should not be maybe in matters of welfare and also in matters of medical and housing, because indeed we know that you know, there is, for example, the AON, the insurance cover. They also have the NHIF, and this has not helped either when it comes to medical cover. And this also goes beyond maybe the police service, because as we went round seeking for votes, there were issues that were really continuously being mentioned. Of course, one being NHIF, that despite the amount being raised to 500 shillings per month, one, that amount is unaffordable to many of the local people who are jobless. And number two, that they still offer limited services. For example, when you seek medical, dental service, or you know, the optical services, you are not able to get them even through the improved 500 shillings contribution. So I want to say this should be relooked. And in fact, I had you know, set myself to come up here with a bill to ensure that this amount is brought down to where majority of people could really afford. So I want to say that the insurance cover, AON, should be extended to the police service and also improve in the terms of the cover that it does. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, sir, as we talk about compensation of family members, majority, just like in most families, majority, the head of the families being the police officers, the men, they are breadwinners. And once now they are rendered invalid, they cannot you know, perform their duties, earn a salary, their members really languish in poverty. So I want to say that I really support this idea of compensating the families, and to go in line with that is the fact that the family records should be maintained. I know that when one is employed they are supposed to fill forms showing the next of kin, showing who the family members are, but in the course of performing duty, they increase in number, the dependents increase in number. And I don't know whether the law allows, maybe depending on the terms of service or the scheme of service. I know most organizations recognize one wife and their children below 18, but sometimes some of them are still not put, updated. So I want to support the idea that through regulations and these regularly updating records, so that in case
we're coming to you live from Parliament, and that was Cecilia Ngetich, the Bomet women representative, contributing to the National Police Service Amendment Bill, of course lobbying there for better medical, and we will be giving you more details on Parliament's entry later on in subsequent bulletins. In sports, Juventus defender Dani Alves produced in an inspired display